going back to that day, that wave of depression hits me, and I walk to the car, and I'm like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I can't do life anymore. That's the mood I was in. So I had gotten in my car, and I headed to a park that had a boat ramp that led to the river. And on the way there, I'm praying to God. And God and I have had an on and off relationship up until that day. And I just said, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Tell my family, let them know I'm sorry and I love them, but please take care of them. And there I go, off to the park. Well, God had different plans that day. I'm heading there, and the only entrance to the park was barricaded with road closed signs and big orange construction barrels. And so I stop and I, take a deep breath, and I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. I look up and say, okay. All right, I guess I'm gonna go to work.
Welcome back to the Present Fathers Podcast. Our guest is Luke Fernandez, a.k.a. Anomaly Luke. Luke, brother, how are you, man? Welcome to the show.
Doing great, George. Brandon, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, brother, I am pumped to get your story. I know it's one that's very inspiring, overcome a lot of hardship to get to where you are today and help others along the path. So I want to thank you first, right up front, for being willing to share your story and help other men overcome. So with that, why don't you start telling us a little bit about who you are, your family, kind of set the stage for the audience, and we'll go from there into your background.
Yeah, perfect. So born and raised in St. Louis, and I still live here now. I'm going to be actually 36 next month. I have a wife, and we are going on 11 years of marriage next month.
Congrats.
And then also a baby boy who's turning a year old next month.
Nice.
June is it's just our month. I kind of planned it out like that when we first started dating, and then I proposed, and then we got married all in June. I only have so much bandwidth, so I had to keep all the important dates in the same month.
Get it all done at once.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. And my boy, he was like, well, I'm going to come 6 weeks early just to keep it easy on dad. So it worked out. So like I said, born and raised here, grew up in a single parent household with my mother. My parents got divorced when I was 4. And, really from that point on, without realizing it, that's when trauma from just having separated parents started, and seeing different struggles that my mom dealt with raising my sister and I. And, food became a big part of that. We'll get into all that later. I became overweight and obese at a young age in high school, and then went finally the opposite way of a crazy weight loss journey that sometimes, and especially now, it's been about 13, 14 years, that it's hard for me to remember like what I went through and what I was like. And, people congratulate me and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. But also it sucked that I got to that point. But now I help people. And so it makes me go back to where I was. And it's kind of an interesting thing when I go back and think about what I've been through just in the weight loss, but then also the mental transformation that comes with that.
Yeah, man. It's funny, right? Like we kind of wish, I wish I never got to that point in the first place and had to overcome it. But, we all have like that thing, right? And for you, it was weight, but, we all have a thing that we kind of get to that point, right? Hardly anyone ever is just perfect. But you brought up an interesting point too, just how we are so uniquely positioned to help like the older version of ourselves, right? And it's like you're just able to empathize to such a higher level with like, man, I know exactly what that's like because I was there. I was you. But a lot of people kind of sit on that. They don't actually pay it forward. And it sounds like you've really committed to doing that. You've made it your mission. So let's get into it if you're willing, man.
Yeah.
Let's share kind of where the hardship started for you. And, I know you had a lot in your past that you had to overcome, like you said. And so if we can get into that, I think it'll help really contextualize where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, parents got divorced when I was 4 years old. And being that young, you don't understand. Automatically, I thought, me and my sister both thought it was because of us. We thought it was because of the kids. And I think that's actually pretty common from knowing other people at the time when I was a kid who went through the same thing, which is terrible. Of course, it's usually never about the kids. And come to find out later, it wasn't. Um, but so, I had mental health issues from the beginning too, from about that point. Where's my dad? Oh, he left because of me. I was too bad of a kid. I didn't behave right, whatever it was. And I put that stuff on me. And then, my mom did her best. She did amazing raising my sister and I on her own. My dad, yeah, he did pay his child support. He was the hardest worker I've ever known. So I got that from him, which is great. And, we got visits with him and stuff like that, but it wasn't having a father in the way that I would have liked to. He was much better at giving us financial resources than love that I felt like I needed and definitely did need, that I come to realize, of course, years later. So growing up with my mom, there was financial struggles. Times were tough. Um, it wasn't a lot of positive energy around. And, again, I'm a kid, so I just, brush it off, whatever, like go play with my friends, be better. But when I get back home, I can tell there's something a little off. Um, she, expressed a lot of her feelings through food. I express all my feelings through food. We come from a big Italian family. My grandmother, the matriarch of the family, lived till she was 100 years old. She cooked all her life for herself, for us. Bringing out third dessert when we're not even done with second dinner yet, and so it was just food was everything. And then also along with that, like food was never looked at as a bad thing. It was always cigarettes, drinking, drugs, stuff like that, which I did a pretty good job when I was younger of staying clean from that stuff. But I was gorging on Little Debbie and frozen pizza and candy and stuff like that. Um, and realizing that that's just how I express my emotions: happiness, sadness, joy, exuberation, anger. Well, I'd go to food because it would, if I was expressing something great, why not amplify it with a sweet snack? If I was sad and feeling down, let me get a dopamine hit from the, oatmeal cream pie I'm about to eat or the soda I'm going to drink, whatever it was. Quickly, that just kept escalating. As I grew up older, middle school, I stopped playing sports mainly because I couldn't deal with not being good or not being on a good team. I was a quitter in a lot of stuff: sports, school, activities. I just couldn't deal with not being what I thought was good. Not sure still where that came from in life. I just think I was just kind of a wimp and couldn't push through, and I didn't have any grit or fortitude or discipline, which is now the secret to everything in my life. Like discipline is the structure, and it's what gets me through everything. And I look forward to doing hard things and pushing myself through. So as high school went on, kept eating, noticed depression coming in more and more, not because of the way I looked, but just because I was unsure about life. What was I going to school for? I wasn't good at school. And maybe that was because I didn't apply myself, but also I'm not sure I love the education system and how it's set up and all that stuff. Anyway, so that's when thoughts come in like, man, what's the rest of my life going to be like? Oh, I'm just going to,
Right.
what am I going to do for a job? And then, I see this in my life growing up. Is that how my life's going to be when I grow up and I'm older? And a lot of questions, a lot of confusion, a lot of feeling lost without purpose or hope or anything like that. And all along the way, just eating, 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 eating. And right around right after my senior year of high school, I got on the scale at some point and it said 260 and I'm 5'8". Well, I don't know why I got on the scale because I didn't do anything. A little bit later, I get on the scale again and I'm 280 and I'm 5'8", guys. That's a lot of weight on a small frame. And still didn't worry about it, was partying with my friends, got into drinking, got into smoking weed and smoking cigarettes and did that didn't worry about the week, get to Friday, and then just party for 2 or 3 days and then just do it all over again. Like I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably have experienced at some point in their life, or they might still be experiencing that. And there was a significant turning point that made me realize I need to wake up and take control of my health. If you guys want me to go on that now, we can. I don't know if you want to question or
I had one quick
yeah.
question. Um, you mentioned that you just didn't like have a lot of drive. You easily gave up. Obviously, you had several things working against you, right? Didn't really have a strong relationship with your dad. Mom was struggling to kind of just keep it going and all that kind of stuff. Do you think there's anything someone could have did or said to you that would have help, get you back to like the place you are now where discipline is, clearly present in your life? Or do you think you were just like stuck? And the reason I'm asking that is not just necessarily for you specifically, but like maybe there's a parent listening to this right now who's like, dang, my kid is showing signs of that exact same behavior. How do I help them? So, is there anything that Luke at that age could have heard or had someone start doing for them to help them build some actual discipline and a little bit of resilience despite all the other factors?
Yeah, I'm not sure if like them saying something or talking to me about it would have been what I needed, but if I could have been shown, you know, um, and it's weird thinking about it now, speaking about how, I used to just quit a lot of stuff. Well, my dad kind of quit on the marriage with my mom. And my dad, as I believe most young boys are, their dad is their superhero. Even if they're not as superheroish as you want them to be, that's what he was. And it's like, well, he gave up on that. Okay. Um, he gave up on fathering his first two children from his first marriage. My mom was his second marriage, kind of gave up on that. Um, and like I said, my mom, she did so much for us. And there was a period in my life where I missed how much she did for us. I was looking at like what she didn't do for us, which we all know that when you look at the negative side of things, it only brings more negative stuff to your mindset and into your life. And finally, I mean, this is recent within the past couple of years. Like, it's like, oh, wait a second. Like, she did so much for us. She sacrificed so much. So, like, I go through a whole guilt journey there and, feeling terrible for the way I was feeling and even some
Yeah.
ways I was acting towards her. We're working past that, getting better. There's, we don't see eye to eye politically and on other factors, but that is what that is. So there's a little tension there, but nothing crazy. But yeah, I think if I just could have had the example, right? Like that's what I want to be for my son. I want to be an example that he can see a good husband and hopefully a good father or a good, strong man who can also teach him how to love and care and respect others and help others, but somebody who's also going to stand on his word and stand his
Mhm.
ground when he needs to.
We interrupt this episode to talk about Synthesis Tutor, the world's first superhuman math tutor. It is warm, patient, and understanding and adapts to your child so you never have to worry about them falling behind when it comes to math. In episode 84, we spoke to Chrisman Frank, the CEO of Synthesis, and immediately afterwards, I purchased Synthesis Tutor for my daughter, and it has been an absolute game changer for us. Math used to be a very painful experience. It was frustrating, and there was lots of tears for my daughter when it came to learning math. It's something she's not naturally good at, and we struggled a lot. Now she happily uses Synthesis Tutor every single week, and there's no more frustrating nights. The way it works is that it leverages AI to adapt the experience to your child to not simply master memorization of math facts, but it actually teaches the principles and concepts so that your child can independently solve problems without needing tons of outside help. Because it tailors the experience to your child, it is always adapting and learning where the child is in terms of their development, and it keeps them in the proximal zone of learning so that your child is being challenged but not getting frustrated or defeated by the experience. I am very pleased with our experience on Synthesis Tutor. My daughter's grades have improved in math, It's something that I can now outsource. I don't have to take the time myself to sit there and try and memorize facts with her. She gets excited to do it, and it's fun and engaging for her to learn instead of this frustrating experience, and it doesn't feel like a chore any longer. So we at the Present Fathers podcast highly endorse Synthesis Tutor. There is also a Teams function for those with multiple kids or maybe multiple families want to pool their children together. You can check that out on the website. You can get 10% off with your purchase by going to synthesis.com/PFP. That's synthesis.com/PFP. Go there, check it out, and start supercharging your child's learning experience with the power of AI. Back to the episode. And then one quick follow
Yeah.
up to this, and I know Brandon has a question for you. Yeah, I've had a lot of guys reach out to me too, like, can you talk more to not just dads, but like maybe those of us who are uncles or like a close family friend who can maybe fill the father role as
Mm-hmm.
best as we can. That statistically, there's a lot of those guys out there, right? Because there's lots of divorce and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. So, like what would you say to guys who maybe have the opportunity how to start trying to foster, like let's say you had maybe a coach or something who could have
Mm-hmm.
maybe like realized, hey, Luke's kind of struggling. Like, what would you have needed from them to start like feeling trust with them and maybe start opening up about how you're struggling to even learn how to overcome it, when you were younger?
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, I had that. My dad's brother, my uncle, he was a father figure for me for the rest of my life. Well, the rest of his life, I should say. Um, in certain ways, he was a good husband, good father. But then actually his wife, my aunt, my godmother, she was somebody that I could talk to about a lot of stuff. I know you asked about a male role model. So I'm going back to her because she was kind of that for me in certain aspects. She was somebody that I just felt like I could be vulnerable with. Why? Because I knew she loved me. Like she's just a lady who exudes love. So it's easier as a young man and a teenager to be vulnerable with that type of person. So, to men out there who are listening, yeah, like we need to be fitter father figures in every way, even if you're not a father. You're an uncle, a cousin, a neighbor, a brother. It just lead with example. Try to do the right things. Do what you think is best. Obviously, none of us have it all figured out, but if we lead with the best intention and what we believe is right, then hopefully that's a way to go. But also let that person know, that young kid in your life, that teenager who might be kind of lost like I was, like they can come to you. No judgment, no nothing, just all love. Give them a hug, just sit and let them talk. And then
Yeah, man.
usually, like when I would have a talk with my aunt, I would talk to her and then I'd be like, do you have any advice? Do you have any input? What can I do? And there was times
Gotcha.
where we would talk and I wouldn't ask for that and she would just give me a hug and that was it.
Hmm.
Gotcha, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Brandon, over to you.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had quit your sports in middle school
Mhm.
because it would get hard or it would get very challenging and you'd feel like a failure. And I think one of the things that psychologically that happens to kids when they don't have their dad around modeling the proper behavior is they don't have somebody backing them up saying, no, you've got to do the hard thing. You've got to push through this. And like they do it in a way that builds you up instead of tears you down. So like
Mhm.
your inner monologue, they're trying to adjust it. Like your inner monologue will turn negative if you don't have somebody helping you direct it as a kid. Right. And so I feel like your inner monologue was just twisted. And I also think that, one of the things I always say is if you don't speak it, you store it. And so I feel like you internalized a lot probably. And so other than the emotional eating, like what were some of the first things that were kind of gateways to create, the downward spiral towards other negative things for you?
Yeah. I was just a super angry person from when I was a kid. I mean, when my parents got divorced, they knew it had affected me because I had started going to a therapist. Well, at that time she was called a counselor pretty early on, and I remember her specifically like, you get so angry and mad, it's just uncontrollable, right? And I was like, yeah, like I just can't help it. I want to scream, I want to hit something, I want to break something. And she'd be like, well, scream into a pillow or squeeze a Nerf ball or something, which I guess for, a fourth grader or whatever, that's probably a good thing to recommend. That's decent. But that anger and everything continued until I was 30, and I still get angry, but I know how to direct it now. So yeah, it was the bad eating, just negative all the time. I was
Yeah.
just the most negative person. Everything was bad. Everything was out to get me. If my shoe got untied, I would get so pissed off. Probably because I was fat, and I'd have to figure out how to tie it. But
Right.
that's another story. But or just the goofiest things. If I kind of stumble walking down the hall, or the littlest things would just set me off. And my instinct is to scream and hit something. Um, I got into a lot of fights in school and middle school and high school, a lot of physical altercations. Never started them, always found them because I was always looking for them. And you attract what you look for. So that's kind of what happened. And then there was just like I said, I had no hope. I almost felt lost, and I was just kind of going through life, and all that anger and frustration would come out at certain times, and then I would get upset for getting upset and losing my
Mm.
temper. That then would spiral down into more like of a depression. And I, for a long time, thought it was normal for people to be depressed. And like up until a few years ago, I was depressed, I would say 75, 80% of the time. And once I found out that's not normal, like I met somebody who's like, I've never been depressed. And he was around my age. I'm like, what are you talking about? How have you not been depressed? And once I figured that out and I started getting into books and self-development, and, came across the Secret, and it's about the law of attraction and stuff. But I remember specifically, they're like, what you think about, you attract. Like, you don't have to be this way. You can be that way. And I was like, literally in an instant, I'm like, oh, I don't have to be negative. I can think differently. I can try to think positive. And literally, like, my life,
Yeah.
my mental health took a different trajectory from that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say often everything is mind control,
Yeah.
including the words we use to ourselves. So, choose, are you going to control yourself positively or negatively?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you set the reality that you live in, and
Mhm.
a lot of the times we set the reality based on the perception that we perceive that they have of us, right?
Right.
So it's pretty crazy. But let's flip that. So obviously you had a downward spiral. You had a lot of negative either addictions or vices or habits. So obviously you started doing some positive habits like reading and things like that. So what were some of the coping mechanisms that you didn't expect, but like they kind of flipped to the opposite as far as like, like say you had a negative thought loop. What was something that you didn't expect that created a positive thought loop? Like, so that way somebody that might be dealing with this currently can
Mhm.
maybe flip it over, right?
Yeah, for sure. So the thing that started me changing as a person and changing my mental health and my direction in life was physical activity. Once I decided I wanted to, at that point, it was just lose weight. I just want to lose weight. So I'm going to go for a walk. I didn't know what else to do. I went for a walk, eventually would start running, and then, eventually go to the gym and stuff. But like when I talk to people about it, it's like get in action. Because when you just sit there, literally just sit, and you're just dwelling and thinking and spiraling in the darkness of depression, first of all, it's actually, to me, it's very selfish to be depressed because all you do is think about yourself. So it all starts with getting physical, literally get up, do some jumping jacks, go for a walk, go for a run, because you can't be in a negative mindset and be in peak physical performance at the same time. It elevates your frequency totally, right? And then the second thing right on top of that is I started like trying to go out of my way to be kind to people. At the grocery store, let me hold the door for them. Let me help this lady get something off the shelf. It actually happened today, so maybe that's significant in being on the podcast tonight. She asked me to help her get something off the shelf, but like just those little things, right? I call it get outside of self, where I'm
Yeah.
so concentrated on myself. I feel like shit. I'm talking shit to myself. I'm putting myself down. Let me help somebody else and see how good that feels. Oh,
Mm,
wow. It feels really good. I'm going to do that a little bit more. All it takes is a smile to somebody, and that person could be feeling the way that I was or I used to. And I smile at them, they smile back, and maybe they have a little bit brighter day. So why not
hmm
do that?
That's good, man.
Yeah, and then so on top of the working out, I just drastically changed what I was eating. Again, I didn't know what to do at that time, so I literally almost stopped eating. I didn't do it the right way. Don't do it this way if you want to lose weight. Um, I literally ate grilled chicken, apple, salads, and that's about it for like 6 months. And I was moving a whole lot, so eventually I lost 143 pounds in about a year and a
Whoa.
half. Yeah, I got
Wow.
I got actually got too small. um, and then progressed into maintaining a much healthier lifestyle in the right way once I
Right.
learned about nutrition and resistance training and all of that. And then, like you said, reading, listening to things. Like, I'm real big on what are you feeding yourself, but not literally.
Yep.
Like, what are you feeding your mindset, right? Your brain. So, yeah,
Mind control.
motivational,
Yep.
inspirational stuff. I don't watch anything that I think is going to like bring me down, especially the news, or even certain movies or things. If they're about certain topics, I just don't, won't do it anymore. Um, and then music, of course, music to me is the biggest mood enhancer, no matter what mood you're in. So, choose the right music depending on the mood.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that a lot, man. The point that really just jumped out at me the most there from the things that you did differently, um, being kind to other people, doing things for other people. I heard it from his name is Garrett Unkelbach. He said, if you want to have an amazing life, live for other people.
Mm.
And I was like, dang, it's so true. Because when you force yourself to have to think of others first and help others first, it inherently makes you like a better person because you
Right.
have to be in order to give to someone else. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like you were saying, it's so easy to get caught up in our own stuff, right? And look at our own pain and be stuck in our own thing. But if you are able to make that first step outside of yourself to look at someone else and help them with their thing, somehow your stuff feels a lot lighter.
Yeah.
And it's just that like slight perspective shift. It's like a breath of fresh air, like you've been holding your breath underwater and you finally can come up for air. It's amazing how that works. And
Mm-hmm.
and then what you were saying is, you made it like a daily habit. It kind of just keeps you from regressing back into that place, right? So great stuff right there, man. So we kind of interrupted your story. I know you've kind of talked about the weight loss now, but
Yeah.
go through the details of where you were, kind of that pivotal moment for you.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I've got to make a huge change here, and then walk us through kind of the rest of your journey there.
Yeah, certainly. So it's always an ironic story telling this, and it's not some like big crazy health scare or anything, thank God. Um, for me, it was my current wife. I had met her from an acquaintance at the time. They were actually dating. So you can call me Mr. Steal Your Girl, I guess. But they had broken up. And then a few months later, her and I had been hanging out quite a bit. And this is while I was still big, mind you. And we went on a hike. Come to think about it, I don't know how I got up that hill, but I guess I just had to impress her or try to feel like I couldn't fall on my face.
You were thinking with your head, not your head.
Yes, yes. Uh, so we get up on this beautiful, like scenic outlook. We're on a big bluff rock. There's trees and a river below. It's just beautiful. And we're just sitting there, and she's kind of at the edge of the cliff, and I'm sitting back, and I get this weird feeling in my stomach. I'm like, I haven't felt that before. What's going on? Oh, I think this is love. I think I love this girl. That's weird. I can't love
Mm.
her. I can't. No, that ain't right. Well, turns out I did. And when I realized it, I was like, being a man, I was like, she's not going to want to have sex with a big fat guy like me. And that was the pivotal moment that made me realize I needed to lose some weight. And then the
I
next
don't see
day,
anything wrong with that.
yeah, I mean, whatever it is, let it motivate you. I'd rather it be
Yeah,
something like that than a giant health scare or,
right.
something else. So, and it worked. Um,
All right, so you met the girl of your
yeah,
dreams. You wanted to woo her,
yeah,
and then you started down the path.
yeah. Um, just like the next day, okay, instead of waking up and eating Pop Tarts or Little Debbie or whatever quick thing I could, I just went to work and was like, okay, we got some, like we had a little break room that had some food. So like I had this apple and dude, I hadn't even had an apple in probably years. I couldn't even tell you, right? And I used to stop on the way to work and get a pack of cigarettes and soda and like everything. Well, I cut everything cold turkey food wise. There was no more soda. There was no more pizza, no more candy, no more Little Debbie, no more cakes, no more chicken fingers. And that was stuff I ate every day almost without thinking about it. And then started walking. Walked probably 5 minutes the first time and was like, oh, okay, I'm done. At least I did something. And then the real trick was going back to the house and not rewarding myself because I did
Yeah.
something small.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I worked a very physical job, so that was beneficial for my weight loss.
Right.
But
Right.
after getting off work, her and I would go to the gym. We'd have a gym date. And
Nice.
I wasn't lifting weights because I was like, I got to lose weight. I just got to do cardio. So I would literally get on a treadmill for 2 or 3 hours. I'd either watch a hockey game or a TV show, run during the commercials. So kind of doing like hit workout without knowing. I'm telling you, I didn't know anything, right? Super small gym. They're actually big nationwide, but they're smaller. So there wasn't like trainers or anything. But finally, one day, the owner talked to me and, he's like, I've seen you in here. You lost a lot of weight. Have you thought about lifting weights? And I'm like, man, I don't know anything about that. And so he kind of introduced me to resistance training.
Yeah.
And from there, like, I fell in love with it. And I was like, wait, I don't have to do cardio, like, barely at all or ever? Like,
That's
hell
right,
yeah. Like,
buddy.
yes, let's go. Like, and so, just years
One
and
of
years
us.
of that,
One of us.
yeah, right. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, I think I graduated out of this gym. I'm going to, move on to a little
Yeah,
bit bigger
buddy.
gym. Yeah.
I love it.
And that's the evolution just came from there. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Can you real quickly
Mhm.
talk about the psychology aspect of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
One, I imagine you must have been having some very intense cravings, right? Like you just went cold turkey on everything.
Mhm.
What was that experience like for you? Because I know that for a lot of people, that's a huge hang up. And who really opened my eyes to this was Drew Manning talking about when he did his, fit to fat thing.
Yeah.
He was so shocked by how psychological the experience was, right? Like he's a fit guy, he knows how to be fit, and yet he still really struggled with it. How did you kind of stay on the wagon, right? Because there's like your gut lining gets addicted to the things you feed it,
Mhm.
right? So like there's very strong urges there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I want to put on top of this, like 2 months after I started losing weight, I quit smoking cigarettes that I had been smoking for 12 years at that time. I started smoking when I was in fourth grade, so that's terrible. We don't need to talk about that. But so, like, I say that because, and I quit drinking about the same time I quit smoking. I say that because people say, oh, I can't quit smoking because I'm going to gain weight. Or, I'm smoking, so I can't exercise because I can't breathe right. Well, look, I just quit everything and I'm here. I'm okay. I'm way better than I was before, and you'll be okay too. But yeah, that psychology, like, man, I still fight the demon of sweetness. I still fight the cravings, and we're talking 14 years later. Um, but at that point, like when I was fresh into it, um, the will and the desire to just lose weight was stronger than the cravings. Um, and that's where I first realized, going back to what we spoke about earlier, like, oh, wait, if I don't quit working out and I don't give up on my new quote unquote diet, like I'll see the results I want to.
Gotcha.
And I didn't think about the results a lot. I didn't have a place in mind. I just knew I didn't want to be as big as I was. And I wanted to be under 200 was like what I had in mind, right?
Mm.
So I had a long way to go to even get
Yeah.
there. But as time goes on and you get to a better place, once I got to a better place physically, I was like, oh, maybe I could start, I slowly started working stuff in my diet. Like I cut out ranch dressing. I used to have ranch for everything. I went, nope, I'm doing Italian because I think it's less fat and it's supposed to be better for you, right? So that was like one of the first things I brought back into my diet was ranch dressing.
Okay.
God, it was so good. It still is. I love ranch. I'm not going to lie. Um, and, for me, it's just the will and the desire. Like, I've gotten to the point now that I can control if I do
Mm.
decide to have that cookie or that cupcake or those two
Right.
donuts or whatever, right? But that has come over time, like a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I have people that I work with now and I'm like, I want you to go pretty fucking strict and pretty hard on yourself because I
Right.
want you to cut out all the cravings and all the temptations right away. And then once you build up the resistance to where you can have that one or two things without having all of them,
Right.
then we can work it back in, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have the greatest answer for like you asked, but like that's just what I got. Just gotta want it, and that's what I tell people. People ask me now, like, how do you work out so consistently? How have you kept the weight off? How have you not gone back to smoking? How'd you quit? How can I quit? I'm like, you just have to want it. You have to decide in an instant that you want it more than any of your BS excuses that are going to come along the way and tell you it's okay to do it.
Yeah.
Until then, and then eventually it becomes normal life.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
working out, that's just what I do now. It's just like you sitting and watching TV. Me
Hmm.
eating quote unquote healthy or the way I should eat is different from you, but it's normal for me. So it just
Right.
becomes your new normal eventually.
Yeah, I think for me, it took about 3 to 4 weeks of being cold turkey from sugar to be able to see it and not like just want to smash it, right? And
Hmm.
so, as an emotional eater in the past myself, like I used to run marathons, so I would just eat whatever I wanted because it didn't matter. I just needed calories, right? And the most calorically dense foods were the garbage ones, so it was kind of the dirty bulk, right?
Yep.
But when my cholesterol decided it wanted to be a dumpster fire, I had to fix that, right? So I went cold turkey on all the sugars and the processed garbage. And about 3 weeks into it, and consistent exercise is about when the sugar craving stopped. And then I also developed like a healthy habit to find things that were sweet that were healthy, like certain types of fruits, Greek yogurts, things like that you can mix together and kind of make feel like a treat, right?
Hmm.
And you can always do that to reward yourself. But I think that's one of the things I did the most for myself personally because I struggled with a lot of that emotional eating.
Yep.
But, I feel like the body always takes a toll or counts the cost when it comes to the bad habits that we give it. So have you experienced anything like long term from the things that you did negatively?
I don't think so. So, like,
Okay.
I've gone and gotten tests here and there, and anytime I go to the doctor or the hospital and they like go to check my heart rate, it's super slow and super low, and it's hard for them to get it. And I think that's because of lifting weights and because of exercising so much, right? But no, I don't have anything that's kind of crazy or anything. We have heart issues in our family history. Just started recently getting that checked out, and everything's good so far. So, no, I don't know whether I was blessed,
Okay.
lucky, or the hell that I've put myself through in a good way has just built me into a superhero or something. But
Yeah.
Well, I guess the other thing too, did fasting help at all for you when you first started getting into your diet routine? Because I found that it really helped me, and I just was curious if it helped you as well.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I didn't know that's what it was, like intermittent fasting. I didn't know until what 5, 6, 8 years ago when it became a big thing. But I was definitely doing a good 16 hours without realizing it. Just it's easy when you sleep through it and then don't eat until lunchtime at work the next day. And I was fine doing it. Um, it gets harder the more weight you drop. I don't know if you experienced that, Brandon, but like because obviously your body has so much fat and energy stored to eat off of, you kind of don't get hungry. But I'll tell you what, I remember the first time I was hungry. It was probably like 5 months in. The first time that I remember being hungry my whole life, till I was since I was a little kid, and I was like, I was with my girlfriend, I'm now wife at the time, and I'm like, my stomach feels weird. I don't know what this is. Like literally, I'm like, I don't know if I gotta, use the restroom or if I need to eat or what. And she's like, I think you're hungry. How crazy is that? I didn't
Yeah.
even know what it was like to be
Wild.
hungry because I was always stuffing my face when I didn't need to be.
Always seeking the comfort
Oh
and
God, yeah.
and not addressing the elephant in the room. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think for me, like it was building a different muscle. Like, you go to the gym to build your body, but you got to build the brain muscle as far as like temptation. And, the Bible tells us to fast. And I think that I correlate it with sin, right? So like when I am tempted to eat and I fast, I am building that muscle to resist the
Yep.
urge to eat or resist the temptation, right? So the same thing happens in my life. If I have a vice that is tempting me, I am less tempted because I've built that muscle up. And so that's why I always tell people when you're starting a diet, try fasting first because it's going to help you build up that discipline and that tolerance towards avoiding the emotional eating and all the other things. And it kind of makes you think clear too. When, you get hour 16, you're like,
Yeah.
whew, you're zoned in, so.
Yeah.
Yep. The,
No,
the body sharpens to say, find the next thing to hunt.
right. Yeah. And
We
well,
need to
kind of
eat.
on the point that you just made, like with fasting, like, especially when you start cleaning up what you're eating and putting into your body, like your mind works in a different way.
Yeah.
Like you're not as
The
like
brain
cloudy,
fog goes away.
fatigued. Yeah. And you just feel better. I don't know, cleaner. Like it just feels better. That's all it is. But people they don't believe it's true because they're stuck in that energy fog and that low energy because of what they're eating, that they can't even start to think about how they could feel better because of what they're eating.
Yeah.
Uh,
If because I eat very clean, I stay very fit, pretty freaking healthy. If I go like 2 days, like 2 cheat days, 2 to 3 days of just kind of like not working out and eating whatever I want, like on vacation or something, I feel immediately terrible.
Yeah.
Like I feel it all, like the fog come in, my joints start to hurt again, my back starts to hurt again. Like it's that fast.
Right.
So if you can't feel that, it's because your body's so beaten into submission by it that you can't even like recognize it anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
seriously, like think about what you're doing to yourself,
Yeah.
and sugar inflames tissue, right? And that's why it causes a lot of other problems down the road too. It's not just like your organ health and stuff. But
Right.
one quick thing I wanted to follow up on, and then I want you to continue your story. Um, in that kind of starting phase, you talked a little bit about like you changed your goal, right? You wanted it more than you wanted the food. What did your internal language talk about, or how did that shift? And the example I want to use is like from the book Atomic Habits, right? He talks about like active language, like determined language for yourself, not like wishy-washy. And the example is actually smoking in the book. Like someone who says, I'm trying to quit smoking is never going to quit because it's, I'm trying. They're not really committed.
Yeah.
But then the alternative to that would be, I'm not a smoker. So for you, like, did your language shift in that manner for all these different things for you? And if so, like, can you give us some examples?
I don't think so. I don't think back then. Like the only thing that comes to mind is I guess I was still trying to quit in certain ways. Like when I was on the treadmill running, like I don't like running now. Like I did a 5K a couple years ago and I trained a lot for it. And it's only a 5K. But anyway, so back in the day, like when I'd be on the treadmill, I'm like, okay, I just got to get to 2 minutes. And then I'm like, oh, I got 2 minutes. Let me get to 2.5. And like I would increase it by 30 seconds, right? So it's like I was wanting to quit, but I wouldn't let myself. So I guess that's kind of like determination on getting through it. But um, no, honestly, it's just like I guess I got to the point that like that was the first time when I quit eating such crappy and being dedicated to working out. That was the first time I made my mind up and it was like I wasn't gonna let up or quit or stop. And then smoking was the next one, right? So it's like I just
Right.
made the decision and I've stuck to it because I
Okay.
absolutely wanted those things out of my life to improve my life, right?
So you decided for the first time you were going to keep your promises to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Old friend
Tough, man.
discipline came into
Yep.
place. Yeah.
Discipline.
Yeah.
it it
Um,
sucks in the moment, but it brings freedom on the other end.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Like people think what I do now or what you guys do like is crazy. Like like I said earlier, we work out and we eat different, we think different, we try to stretch our minds along with our bodies, and like yeah, it's different and it's hard and it sucks, but damn, you feel good once you get through it, or once you fail 3 times and then get through it because you're not going to quit. Like people, and me, I used to be the quitter and I was so miserable. But why wouldn't I be? I never kept a word to myself. I never followed through on everything. Any resistance came, I just gave up and quit. Why would I have any self respect? Why would I have any self love for myself? So there's people now who probably feel that way and they don't realize that they can change that if they just fully commit. You got to just radically commit to changing your life, commit to radically changing your life, and just keep going. It's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, but for the love of God, it's worth it. Like, I would choose the hard struggle, get through it, and prove to myself that I can do it And if I have to do 10 attempts at it, so be it, over quitting and sitting. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Love it. All right. So you started down this journey, you started getting healthy, you
Mm-hmm.
quit all your vices. I know there's more in your
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Um, it sounds like the mental struggles were still there the whole
Mm-hmm.
time, though, right? So you were experiencing a lot of success outwardly, but internally you were still struggling, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And big mental health struggles, even after losing weight, even after getting into resistance training, after starting to realize what self development is and trying to grow myself as a person. And again, though, my mindset started to change in the gym, working out, when I decided to go in with a different intention. Like, yeah, I was going in to work out to look better, to feel better, what have you. But just from the endorphins of the working out and just from the results I saw in the mirror and on the scale. Well, when I changed it to like, I'm going in here to change my mental state, to change the frequency I'm sitting in, to just change the way I feel all the time. And like, I'm going to go in here and give this workout everything I got. I'm sure you guys have experienced there's times where you're like, maybe you're coasting through some of the workouts and you're like, hey, check it off. I got it done. Right. And those never feel as good as the ones where you go in and you just go fucking hard and you like died and left your soul on the gym floor. Right. So it's a big thing. Like once I started putting more intention into what I was doing and seeing the long view of why I was doing it, that my mindset started to get a little better. And then on top of that was looking at everything with different intention. And this came from a coaching group that I was part of. They gave us it was a little reading on integrity. And that's what I took from it, is I have to be so intentional with everything that I do. Working out, eating, training clients, being a husband, being a father, all of that. Got to be intentional with everything. If we just go through without direction or without intention in what we're doing and kind of aimlessly going, and probably a lot of things are falling apart because you're not just focusing on the one thing and getting it done correctly. But if you do that, you can knock everything out instead of just having endless, spaghetti
Yeah.
strands of stuff not getting completed. Um, and I was doing real well for a while. And then, like I said, so we were expecting our son last year. He was born last June. And we had been trying for 6 years before we got pregnant. Um,
Wow.
no explanation of why we couldn't. The
Mm,
doctors kept saying, you guys are healthy. They did tests on both of us. Everything's fine. Everything's good. Um, 6 years is a long time to be trying,
yeah,
especially
man.
when you see all your friends having babies and getting pregnant and
Yeah.
everything. We had a couple losses as well. Um, and so we ended up getting IVF treatment. The second round took for us, thank God. Um, and that's our boy now. But 2 months before he was born, in April of last year, I was feeling okay at the time. Left the gym, had an awesome workout, left the gym, and as soon as I walked out, I just got like hit with a wave of depression,
Mm,
overpowering depression. And I knew I had been teetering on the line for a few weeks. Um, but it was always like, I can pick myself back up. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to
mm,
be okay.
What were the signs that you were teetering on the line? Just
It
so, for others.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. It was some of those same doubts I had before.
okay.
As like, I'm kind of lost. Like, what am I doing?
Okay.
I'm working this job that I don't really love. I'm not. I realized this once the big wave hit me. I wasn't ready to be a dad. Not having my father present in the way that I wanted him, hence your guys' show. Um, that really started affecting me. Like, I didn't know how to be a dad. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to change a diaper, just like all the little stuff that I'm sure a lot of guys think about and freak out about, but never tell anybody about. And then also, like, wait a second, I'm not too happy with who I'm being and like how I'm
Mm,
living and the example I'm going to be to him. So, going back to that day, that wave of depression hits me, and I walk to the car and I'm like, I don't think I can do this. Like I can't do life anymore. That's the mood I was in. Uh, so I had gotten in my car and I headed to a park that had a boat ramp that led to the river. And on the way there, I'm praying to God. And God and I have had an on and off relationship up until that day. And I just said, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Um, Tell my family, let them know I'm sorry and I love them, but please take care of them. And there I go, off to the park. Well, God had different plans that day. I'm heading there, and the only entrance to the park was barricaded with road closed signs and big orange construction barrels. And so I stop and I, take a deep breath, and I'm like, you got to be shitting me. I look up and say, okay, all right, I guess I'm going to go to work. So I did. Didn't think anything else of it. The next day, I'm at the gym again, not feeling great still. I see a guy there who I've seen there a bunch of times, never spoken to, and I actually knew this guy from the real estate community that I've been a part of before. He's actually a friend of my brother's who's in that community. And I said, I'm going to go talk to this guy for whatever reason. So I do, and I tell him what had happened the day before. It's really weird that I just felt comfortable enough to share that with him. But I've found that men grow the most when they're the most vulnerable because somebody can either help them or what they're being vulnerable about will help somebody else.
Yes.
And so I share with him, and he goes, so wait a second. You're telling me that you were heading to the river to kill yourself. You prayed to God that he would forgive you, but take care of your family. I'm like, yeah. He goes, and you're still here. Do you think you're still here to take care of your family? And I was like, yep, you're probably right. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, like since that day, that's when I started seeing being a father different, being a husband different, and wanting to be more intentional in the way I conduct myself in those aspects of
Absolutely.
life, which are the two most
Yeah,
important ones, right? And
definitely.
knowing that, okay, God like had that road closed, so I was here to take care of my family. He answered the prayer in a way that I didn't think would be answered, and that's how he does it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons we do this, man, is because we want dads to know, listen, or expecting
Yeah.
dads that are scared. Listen, we all struggle with things as dads, and you might feel alone in that, but you're not. And we all grow on a consistent basis just based off of experience. Like we get thrown in the gauntlet. And I think, with your past of quitting when things got hard, this is not something you can quit.
Yeah.
So you were forced to arise to the occasion. And there
Mhm.
are epical moments in life that will do that to you that you have no control over. And unfortunately, if you don't heal the wounds that your past has given you, you bleed on the other people that you love, right? And
Yeah.
so thankfully you had somebody there, and you also had God stop you with some cones and some good people, right? So that's incredible.
Yeah.
Luke, did you, it sounded like you were relatively isolated. Like you didn't really have, like, let me just give an example. If I'm having that type of day, I'm calling Brandon.
Mm.
Like, I'm gonna be like, bro, I'm not good. Like, I need help. You know what I mean? It sounds like you didn't really have anyone like that around you, really. Did you?
I did,
You
but
just didn't call him?
most of the time when I'm in that type of state, or when I was in that type of state, especially that day, I was being super selfish, and I didn't want to
Mm,
talk to anybody. I didn't.
Mm.
I was to the point like doesn't matter, and maybe there was some shame in there. Like, man, that's I don't want to admit that like I was going to go do
yeah.
this. You know, I did. A few days later, I called my brother and talked to him. He's always been like a mentor to me. He's a few years older, and he was pissed. He was like yelling at me for not, you know, talking to him. And he knows one of my like mentors that I look up to and that I've actually worked with. He's kind of a guy that yells at you, so he knew what he was doing when he yelled at me. Right?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you effing call me? Like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? You got an expecting wife? Blah blah. I said that was the problem. Like, And we went back and forth, and like, so that felt better. And I have another buddy that I can reach out to. He's actually like the emergency contact on my phone for that type of situation.
Okay.
But it was just like, that guy also said in the gym, like, or no, it was actually that buddy, because I ended up calling him too. He's like, that wasn't depression. He said, you walked out of the gym feeling amazing. He said, that was the devil.
Mm,
That was Satan that came to you because he's afraid of you
mm,
realizing your power and raising another powerful boy into a
mm.
man. So,
Seeks to kill and destroy,
yeah,
and he's very clever in the fact that he always tries to go after people in their weakest moments.
Yeah.
I mean, look what he did with Jesus, 40 days and 40 nights. And then he waited on that 40th night, right? Hey, here's a little
Here's some
bread, right?
food. Yeah.
Yeah, this can be yours,
Mhm.
It's already mine, fool,
Yeah.
But yeah.
yeah,
Well, Luke, I want to thank you for being honest about that. I think this is how we break the cycle, right, guy? And so, guys listening, um, we've all had a moment, right? At least,
yeah,
probably more than one.
yeah,
Um, and you're not fooling anybody to think that like you're the only one who's feeling that way or has ever felt that way, right? It's just holding it in and not reaching out is not helping anyone. And in the right groups, in the right communities like this, you need to admit these things
yeah,
to another man, like who's got your back, because he's gonna hear it. He's gonna be like, okay, whoa, bro, homeboy's not good. Like we need to do some work here, and we all get better through that, right? We talked about helping other people, right? So when we do that for each other, it strengthens both of you. It's not like a one-way situation. Um, so thank you for kind of leading by example here, sharing your pain and your moment of weakness, and essentially giving other people permission to be honest about their struggles too. Because when we do that, it loses its power
yeah,
over us, right? And I think I sound like a broken record. Men are struggling so much today because they hold it in and they try and carry the weight of the world and all the things against them by themselves like a lone wolf. Well, the lone wolf gets killed. If other wolves show up against it, you're dead. You don't have a pack with you, right? You need a pack. You need a tribe to rely on, a brotherhood. And if you don't have that, you're really, really, really leaving yourself exposed. And you may feel good now, or you may be doing fine right now, but something's going to happen. And if you don't have that around you, I mean, getting in that headspace happens like that.
yeah,
I mean, I'll be very transparent. It's May right now, recording this. In February, I had to have my brother-in-law come get my Glock. I was like, man, I can't have it in the house. I'm not doing good. I've had the worst week of my life. And I knew enough to know that if I had that as an option,
mhm,
I couldn't trust myself with it, right?
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, not exactly proud to have to admit that, but I'm glad he came and got it.
yeah,
And, and then a couple people were like, bro, like you're not doing good. Like we need to talk. So we've all been there, right? We've all had something we feel we can't overcome. And that's why you need brotherhood.
mhm.
So Luke, thanks for leading in that way, man. Is there anything else you wanted to like just share from your experience and like kind of encourage men out there?
Yeah. No, I mean, just to echo like what you said, holding it in a lot of times seems like the right thing because most of our lives growing up we were either told by a father figure like don't show your emotions, hold them in, or in my case like I felt like the father figure in fourth grade when my parents got or when I was 4 years old when my parents got divorced. Like I was the man, so I couldn't be weak, I couldn't show emotion even though I quit a lot of stuff. Like I still didn't express a lot of my emotion except anger. And like you said, somebody will listen to you. Somebody will listen to you. A stranger, will listen to you. If you get down feeling that bad and that dark, go talk to a stranger. I
Yeah,
bet they'll
man. You
listen.
talk to a stranger at the gym.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Most therapists are strangers.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, you
and,
get low enough.
yeah. On that note, if somebody goes to a therapist, make sure you find one who like lets you answer your own questions and also
Mm-hmm.
maybe suggest books and some other stuff to grow. I only say that because I've gone through a few in my life, and like the first couple, you're kind of just spewing all the sadness and negativity, and that's all you think about every week that you go. And then I got to another one, and she was totally different. She was like, "What about this?" Or she would ask a question, and then it would make
Yeah.
me answer my own questions, and then she'd suggest books, and I was like, "Oh, she's different," you know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that, but
No, that's a great point. And this is a great segue too, because that's a great skill for us to use as dads,
yeah.
right? That's how we draw out of our kids to help them grow in every aspect of life. Don't just give them the answers,
Yeah.
kind of walk them close to it and let them figure it out. That's a very, very, very good skill, not just with the emotional stuff. So, Brandon, why don't you tee up the first kind of fatherhood question here, and we'll segue
Yeah.
to that.
So I know that when you're a brand new dad and there's a young kid in the house and mama's recovering, how did you manage to balance your discipline and your healthy habits to keep yourself in the right state of mind?
Yeah, so you're gonna let me spill my secret here. I didn't. The first 6 months was not great. Not great in the way like I didn't keep my health in check. Between June and December of that year, I gained like 10 to 12 pounds. Wasn't working out nearly as much. So the first 3 months with him were really hard. We were up 20 to 22 hours a day with him every single day. He had some medical
Same.
stuff going on. Yeah, so like it just wasn't good. And honestly, like for me, it was just like I put that stuff on the back burner so I could be here more, be home more, help take care
Yeah.
of him more, so she could get as
Yeah.
much rest as she could.
Right.
Obviously, she needs
It's a
it way more.
season. It's not
You know?
forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And going back to what I said earlier, I'm the man. I need to be tough and need to show up. And that's where the toughness part of the man, I think, is very important. I had a buddy
Mm-hmm.
who had a baby a few months after me, and he was kind of asking some questions. And I was like, look, you just got to man the fuck up. Like,
Yeah.
you got to do a lot.
Yep.
Let her sleep when she can. Make her food. Make sure she's getting. So I was doing a lot of that for her. Put myself on the back burner, knowing that at some point we were going to be able to get back on track. And beginning of this year is when it really happened, and dialed everything in. And I'm 23 pounds down from where I started this year. Like everything's cracking again, and I'm still making. I had to find the way to fit it in, and it's making sacrifices in a different way. Like I get up at 2:30 or 3:30 every day so I can get my workout done, and some days I come back or I do an at-home workout so I can go up and wake him up and feed him and stuff so she can sleep a little bit more. It's a very interesting thing being a new parent, as you guys know, and we both have our own struggles and our own
Mm-hmm.
insecurities and doubts, and
Yeah.
like again, I'm gonna be as strong as I can and everything, but also like I'm being that nurturer that I need to be
Yep.
for her, and
Mhm.
she's being that for me. Like I don't know about you guys, but watching her be a mom is like the most incredible thing, right?
It's
And so I'm like,
amazing.
you're a
Yeah.
freaking superhero for real. Like this is
Yeah.
crazy.
It's like pure femininity.
Yeah,
It's like it's just there's this indescribable, like I'm getting a glimpse of it again because my sister-in-law just had a baby, and so my wife is always over there helping, and like it just warms my heart to see my wife, with this tiny little thing just nurturing it, because it's like there's just something about the way that they shine. They have this kind of X factor as a woman in that situation, right? Like they're the ones who bring life into the world. They're the ones who like cultivate it. And it's just amazing, right? And yeah, dude. So I'm glad you like brought that up because that is one of the coolest parts of being a new dad is not you. It's actually like watching your wife be so amazing.
Be a rock star. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know how a man, a husband wouldn't fall more in love, like through pregnancy and after birth. Like it's awesome, and that's really how I feel. Um, but yeah, so like sacrificed those first 6 months, and then once we got to a good point, we figured out a schedule, and boom, got back to
Got
it.
in a
So
rhythm. Yeah.
yeah,
That's good, man.
yeah,
Quick follow up to that one. So after that like 6 month phase or whatever, you've had to change your schedule, of course. What's some like practical tips you think that like new dads need to think about, you know, re-looking their fitness game? Like maybe they were fit, or
Hmm.
maybe they were doing pretty good, and to kind of you certainly have a new element to your life now. So
Right.
what's Luke's advice for kind of like still staying on top of it without being crazy?
Yeah, I mean it's finding the right schedule for everybody, making it work as you can. Whether, like you said, like you don't have to get up as early as I do, and I'm sleeping like I haven't slept over 6.5 hours since he's been born. But like I find that getting up earlier, I actually have more energy than when I sleep for like 8 hours, and I because most of the time when I sleep for 8 hours, I'm not able to get my workout in. Number one,
Mm,
so I get up earlier. I go through a whole process. I hydrate. I read a little bit. I do some gratitude and prayer, and then I work out.
good.
And that's my new my habits. That's just my
I
life. That's
like
the
it.
way I live, and it sets me up for the day. So you're for guys out there, like find something that works for everybody, but you're also going to have to make sacrifices. But it should be worth it, right? And if you need a little bit of motivation, like just think about the example that you're going to be for your new child, your new baby, and for your wife. Um, the way not only the way you look, but the way you feel. I mean, if I didn't start going to the gym years and years and years ago, I would either be, of course, 400 pounds or probably dead or in jail because the gym definitely helped with a lot of anger stuff.
Mm,
Whether my depression wasn't on point, but the anger, yeah, it puts a good place to put it. And most men,
that's a good point.
they either have anger and it's not controlled in the right way or not dispersed in a place like the gym and it gets them in trouble, or they've suppressed it so much because this is what I did at one point. I suppressed my like anger, which is actually what gives me energy. It's just figuring out how to direct it and how to use it
Yeah,
as fire and energy for purpose instead of destruction.
yeah, that's good. Go ahead,
So,
B.
so what is your favorite part about being a dad so far?
Oh, so he's gotten to the point now where he knows when I'm like coming home for the day, and my wife brings him out to the driveway, and he just starts like kicking his legs and bouncing up and down, and oh man, that's just awesome. That's the best. That and then like when he naps on us. When he falls asleep on me, I'm like, damn, this is awesome. Like this little dude is just passed out on me just because he fully trusts me and everything. Like
Yeah,
it's so cool. Yeah,
yeah, those are great moments, man.
yeah. He
The
also
one like
loves.
the driveway thing
Yeah,
it'll evolve a little bit, right?
right.
You'll hear the feet run into the door and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, he also loves like doing squats and lunges when I hold him and I do that. So he just starts giggling and laughing. I'm like, okay, I guess I better do more squats so I don't,
Great.
die doing this with you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Um, we kind of ask this one to everyone is about legacy. Like, what is legacy? How would you define legacy? And then kind of future cast. Like, what are you trying to build? What do you want your legacy to be?
Yeah, I mean, to me, legacy, all that matters is what my family thinks and remembers.
Mm,
Yeah, it'd be great to be remembered by the world and a bunch of people, but that doesn't matter to me. I've been doing enough on social media, like long enough that I know how people are, right? Like I'm still I've been called fat still. I've been called skinny still. I've been called dumb. Like, okay, whatever, cool, that's fine. Then you also get the awesome messages from people that it helps somebody. But like either way, it doesn't matter. What matters is what my wife and my son think about who I am, who I'm trying to be, who I am with them and with other people. And I just want both of them and, especially my son, to just be proud and to know I tried my best and I'm always going to do my best at that very moment. I never want to stop growing. And, I hope to be able to show him power and like that alpha, but then also some of that beta and loving and caring and compassion. Like I used to call myself a hard ass with a heart. Like I got
Timber
in fights
warrior.
before where I put somebody on the ground and then I picked him up. So like I want it to instill in him like stoicism,
Yep.
a little bit of toughness when it's needed, but then also just a lot of love and compassion.
It's good,
So
man.
yeah,
All right, B.
So, fatherhood has a way of reshaping our faith and just illuminating the divine in the simple moments, right? And revealing like God's grace and just the ordinary. If you, especially if you're being intentional and you're being present. So, my question is, how has your faith changed since you had your kid?
I mean, first of all, I thank him every day for my kid. You know, going through the 6 years trying to get pregnant, you know, we use science to help, but I know that he had a hand in that for sure. I mean, it was a huge blessing the way that we were even able to do IVF. And yeah, it's just like, whoa, wait a second. Like, this thing's brand new to me, this boy. And as much as I get aggravated sometimes with him, right? It's hard. It's very hard. But dang, I love him so much. And
Absolutely.
I think that's why God makes babies and toddlers have nap times. It's because sometimes it's really hard when they're awake and then they sleep and you look at them and you're like, oh my God, look at that sweet angel. Like this is
Yeah.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
I think that's why he does that.
Yep.
But
Renewal of the mind. Yeah.
yeah, right. And it's just like, huh, like God loves me most likely more than I love him.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
And how
absolutely.
incredible is that? And I
It
mean,
is.
every day, part of my gratitude routine is, of course, being grateful for my wife and my son, but being
Mhm.
grateful that God put that, you know, divine intervention of the construction stuff in the way of the road.
Yeah.
Because I have no doubt that I was fully going through. And then I also have no doubt that that was the devil who did that to me. And God was like, oh, no, no, no. We're not going to let him get you. I'm keeping you on this side,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, before we close, I want to ask Anomaly, where's the name come from?
Yeah.
And then tell us where to find you and where people can support you.
Yeah, perfect. I wish my board back here was a little more in the picture, but it says something that deviates from what is normal, standard, or expected, and that's actually the Google definition of anomaly. Because I came up with it like 5 years ago. I was talking to a buddy, and we were at our place of work at that time. We are the only ones into fitness, into finances, and like growing and thinking differently. And I said, "Yeah, we're a fucking anomaly." And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "What's that mean?" I said, "I don't know. I'm not really sure, but I think it's right." And I literally like Google voiced it so I could hear her say it. And that's what she said back. And I was like, "Oh, that's it. Damn, that's it." Yeah, because we're different. You know, a lot of people don't think about that stuff. And then,
Yeah.
you know, of course, it was always in my mind. And for years, my brother and then some other coaches I worked with, like mindset coaches, were like, "Hey, you need to tell your story more. You need to help people. Your story can inspire people, whatnot." So I kind of started doing that and eventually got of course, the Instagram handle Anomaly Luke, and now, you know, I have a coaching program called Anomaly Coaching, and it's just people who think different, who think outside the box, who don't conform to society's normal and standard that they think we should be, and we're thinking a little differently and doing and living it a little differently.
Yep.
Yeah,
Give yourself permission to be different because average sucks.
yeah. I think I just put it in a post that I posted today. It says "fuck average" because CT Fletcher. I don't know if you know him, but he that's one of his big sayings. It's true.
Yeah, it's a great. I love it, man. Anomaly. Yeah, we be different.
Yeah,
Like normal today, like what the world wants the average American man to be is fat, stupid, depressed, hate his job, have a lame marriage. Like that's average today. Like, do you really want that?
right.
Like, it's not selfish to not want that. It's like self-preservation to want more than that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know where this whole like pressure came around to like if you somehow want to try and better yourself, you're somehow being like arrogant or egotistical. And it's like, no, man, I'm just trying to live better and by extension help others live better too. And
Right.
so yeah, let's all be the anomaly. I
Yeah.
like that, man.
Yeah.
That's freaking cool.
Yeah.
All right, Luke, any closing thoughts for the audience?
You know, no, I mean, outside of take action, whatever you're thinking about, whether it's whether you're kind of feeling down and depressed, get physically active. It'll help you get mentally active in a positive way. If you're thinking about something or thinking about like trying to do something, just take action. The old saying is you have to believe and then you can achieve. Well, for me, like, no, it's you achieve, you take some action, you start achieving, and then you believe in yourself and you just keep compounding that and building it over and over. I have a client right now, just a perfect example. He didn't believe in himself. He was like 2 days in, he was wanting to give up and everything. He texted me last week saying, "Thank you so much for pushing me and believing in me. I have the most confidence I ever have. I feel like somebody who belongs in the gym now, not an outsider. Thank you so much." Right? That means everything. And it's like,
Dude, that's
hey,
awesome.
I'm glad I could lend you a little bit of my belief. You could use that until you built up your own. So take action, then you believe. Also, just be grateful. Everybody has something to be grateful for.
That's right.
And get at it.
Yeah, dude. All right, I love it. I got to do my second workout now.
There you go.
I'm so motivated, but love it, man. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for being transparent, for giving other guys permission to not be perfect, right? This whole act of we got to have it all together is not serving you, it's not serving your family, it's not serving anyone. So let's drop the axe. Let's just be real. Let's admit our faults. Let's drive forward on getting better together. And so I just appreciate you leading by example in that, brother, and for sharing your story here with us. So the handles are where can people find you?
Yeah, Anomaly Luke on Instagram, and then anomalycoaching.com if they want to check that out.
Perfect.
Yeah, just connect and be motivated.
That's right, man. I love it. Well, dads, you heard it from Luke. Take action. Let's get going. Let's start climbing that mountain of fatherhood together. We will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, drop a subscription to us. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. It helps greatly. If you are also ready to level up as a man, check out Elite Sentinel Coaching, our program designed specifically for men, where we forge men into leaders. We turn cowards into kings, weaklings into warriors. Become the hero in your story. Join us today.